Alright, so I just want to talk a little bit about religion. You know, I'm not religious at all, but, you know, I think it deserves its point in the world. I mean, it's been around for a long time, obviously. You know, it's highly believed in, you know. People want something to think for them. They want something to believe in that they don't have to put too much thought into, and it's already predetermined for them. I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. They don't have to do a lot of thinking themselves. It's just a lot of easy work. But if you've actually read the Bible and you go into it and you replace everything in there with like if you replace God with UFOs or with aliens, you know, with an alien race instead, it actually makes a lot of sense. They say that, you know, that Eve was created from Adam's rib. And if you think about it, you know, what can we do right now? We can take a body part and we can make an entire clone out of that body part. How hard would it be for a foreign race to come here in spacesuits and, you know, they say, hey, these people are pretty smart, but we need these resources, and we really don't want to do the work because we're little, and we really didn't bring that much heavy machinery with us, you know, because we couldn't afford it. We couldn't manage to bring that all with us because we lost our planet or whatever and whatnot. And so they came here with very minimal resources. So what do? They take the most smartest race they find here that they probably knew was possibly here, and they genetically enhance it, and they take a piece of them, you know, and they make a clone that's, you know, you can't take a clone and expect it to mate with itself, so they probably made like a clone first, and then they took that clone's DNA and then they altered it, and they sort of bred the altercation, and probably killed off the clone, and gave back Adam, like, here you go, call her Eve, you know. But it's just like, that's how I think it makes a lot more sense, you know. Back in ancient times, they would refer to the gods as mystical beings that were divine, that came down from the clouds that were bright and light and covered in shining, and, you know, they were on carpets of light, and sometimes they were on giant metallic chariots, you know. That just doesn't sound very godly to me. That sounds very alien, and like, it almost sounds kind of like something human, almost like something we've created, you know. It almost doesn't seem alien in some ways, which is why it really doesn't seem that divine anymore. Actually, I sort of take that back, you know. It's not really that it's all that divine anymore, you know. It's sort of lost its power in our technological advancement, which is more proof that religion only holds us back, because if religion was pushing us forward, then we wouldn't even be skepticizing that by now. I wouldn't be even talking about this, you know. If we didn't have religion, you know, we wouldn't even be building things that we wonder, you know, possibly, like, if we knew everything about our past and there was nothing being kept under the books, things would be a lot different, of course. And so when you have things like the Mayans' golden airships that they built, and other small airplane shaped things that they built, remember, these are people who just came out of the Stone Age, and all of a sudden they started building pyramids that emit a sort of radiation, and they start building animals, and out of gold, and among the animals they built ships, like airplanes, like modern day airplanes that they took one of the model like metal golden figurines, and they made it out of a light material, but much larger, like life size, and it worked, and the little golden figurine had like a little pocket for the engine, and it had like a little engine design in there. So they built an engine, they put it in there. That's something that's a little bit modified, but for the shape of it and for the curves and all the intricate details, they kept all that the same, and it flew really well. It flew like at top Mach. It had potential to reach the speeds that our airplanes go at today without any testing involved. They didn't even need any testing, and they made it out of a little figurine. How do you go from living in a cave to figuring airplanes? You don't think that they had help. There's actually recent evidence, very solid evidence, from a Navy sailor that that UFOs are here right now. During World War II, there was this ship built that was it was a major ship in the battle. I don't even know what it was called, but he was manned on the ship, permanently. He was one of the people who was there at all times in case we were attacked, because this is like around the time. This is like when we were going over to Japan, and not Japan, but I don't even know what that area is called. Okinawa, that area, and it was one of the ships that we were keeping out in the Pacific to just sort of keep guard. And it had a lot of nuclear firepower on it, and it had a lot of advanced weaponry, and it was the first ship to have radar that can detect objects all the way down to the sea floor. Objects moving, submersibles and such, because they needed it for the submarines. And this is like, it can detect things that are like thousands of miles down, right? And some guy, he was just sitting there, on duty, and he sees a little blimp on his radar, a submersible that's down around the sea floor, thousands of miles, underwater. And he says, "Wow, what could that be?" And it was a fairly large blimp, so I imagine it was a large object. They created a recreation of it, and he knew what kind of size blimp it was. So, he didn't come out and say how big the object might have possibly been, because he didn't get too much into that. He was getting more into like the recreation of the event, of how it happened to him, of how he witnessed a UFO. And he basically saw this little blimp that was thousands of miles deep, and a couple seconds later it was only 1 mile away from him, and then it was just a mere couple feet. So he goes out onto the deck, where he hears some guy who yells, "Holy shit, what is that?" Like, "Holy fuck," like, "What the fuck," or some shit like that. I don't remember what he said, that the guy said. But they saw a big light come up towards the top of the water, and then they sort of waited there in awe, because they didn't know what to think. They thought that was kind of cool, but they weren't really sure what it was. They thought that, it was dumbfounding at the time, because at that time we didn't have submarines that could go that deep into the water. We didn't even have that kind of technology. So for something to come